Deglobalization, a precursor to World War III or fear-mongering. What is globalization? Globalization is defined as the increase in the flow of goods, services, capital, people, and ideas across international boundaries. So, deglobalization is a movement towards a less connected world characterized by powerful nation states, local solutions, and border controls, rather than global institutions, interconnected economies, and free movement. Deglobalization, however, is not inherently a bad thing in the same way that globalization isn't an inherent good thing for nations across the world. Some benefits of globalization are economic growth for countries involved, as they have a larger pool of workers, information, resources, and technology to pull from, and companies can sell their goods and services to new markets and people. Increased global cooperation also diminishes the chances of war between two nations, and cheaper goods as companies can find ways and places to lower their production costs. The cons are unequal growth between nations as trade surpluses and deficits develop, increased competition between companies, with smaller domestic companies being at a disadvantage to large multinational corporations, which can also lead to a loss of local jobs. Countries, especially smaller ones, can experience a loss of cultural identity as they're flooded with products, music, entertainment, and culture from larger nations. Last major deglobalization. In the 1930s, the fallout from the Great Depression created an era of protectionism, which was a retreat from global trade. The rising and established powers, including Germany, Japan, the United States, and the British Empire, created their self sufficient trading blocs through strict tariffs on imports from outside their circle. One of the most famous examples of this was Britain's policy reversal in 1931 to discriminate against trade from outside the British Empire. The new policy imposed tariffs of up to 100% on products manufactured outside the empire, and many items were immediately taxed by a rate of 50%. By comparison, today's average import tariff rate for products coming into the United States is 2%, with half of industrial goods being imported duty free. Coupling the economic hardships and isolationist policies with the competing ideologies of fascism, liberalism, and communism, the world was bound for war when some countries would disregard rulings from the League of Nations and clash over spheres of influence and power. This war would come ahead in 1939, but with the end of World War II, a new era of globalization was born, spearheaded by the United States, with the creation of international monetary organizations, the United Nations, and an increase of global trade by opening the American market up for imports abroad and patrolling the world's oceans to allow free and safe trade for everyone. Are we currently in a period of deglobalization? Some consider the world to have entered a period of deglobalization, citing recent events such as Brexit and the discontent with the European Union, Trumpism and America First policies, the Ukraine war, the United States and China trade war, problems with supply chains, the global energy crisis, and the past decade's decline in foreign direct investment. Some countries have also begun to ban the export of certain foods and medicines, further limiting the global supply and putting additional strain on global supply chains, driving up inflation and price. With population declines projected in the vast majority of the developed first world and nations facing rapid aging such as Russia, China, and India, trade will inevitably decline as there are fewer people from wealthy nations to buy these goods. Having a lower number of working age adults in an economy also limits how quickly and cheaply these countries can produce goods and can decrease the size of those nations' military, furthering their decline of status and influence in the world scene, which also furthers their reliance on other regional powers for protection and economic prosperity. Countries have also begun to lose faith in multinational political unions in favor of having complete control of their sovereignty, laws, and borders, which was one of the driving forces behind the UK leaving the European Union and other calls, albeit much smaller, in other nations to leave as well. This was also one of the pillars of President Trump's America First doctrine, which advocated for the United States to take a more isolationist and non interventive stand on foreign affairs, even threatening to leave NATO, arguably the most powerful alliance in world history that is spearheaded by the United States. The United States, often dubbed the world's police force and the protector of the free world, is also more reluctant to intervene in foreign wars and give allies security guarantees and aid than previous generations. Many people in the American public are tired of paying the bill for global security, while our European allies are seen as freeloading and not paying their fair share by a lot of analysts and critics. The United States also no longer has the economic basis to continue to support the system, as even though the United States is the largest economy in the world at roughly a quarter of the world's economy, it is down from the highs of the 1960s when it made about 40% of the world's economy. This new era of deglobalization has led to the erosion of international treaties, the accepted rules-based democratic world order, and human rights, with the number of liberal democracies in the world declining between the years 2016 and 2023. World powers like Russia and China long to return to the times of spheres of influences dominated by powerful autocratic states rather than the previously more integrated world led under United States hegemony. This has led to heightened tensions between world powers, and the possibility of war between them hasn't been this high since the end of the Cold War. What happens now? With the United States importing less items and more reluctant to interfere in the global scene, as well as continued Chinese and Russian aggression, the world is at a crossroads with how to react and deal with issues for the rest of this decade and beyond. In order for the current order of globalization to continue, the United States will have to reverse course on its current isolationist path and continue to fund the world system and lead the world order. This would involve a bigger military presence around the globe, and perhaps in some cases even direct interference to curb actions of aggressive nations and create an environment safe and fertile for global trade, even if it means protecting oil tankers and cargo ships from or to nations we deem as threats, such as China and Russia. If this doesn't happen and the United States doesn't continue to provide secure global trade for everyone, insurance rates will inevitably rise and supply chains will fracture due to piracy. Given that most manufacturing operates on low margins and no other country in the world has a strong enough navy to replace the United States, this will break the economic model for many nations and could potentially send the world down a path to a massive global conflict that it hasn't seen in generations. Thank you.